Hello everyone out there on the internet today. Today I'm going to be showing you how to use APIs in order to build out a crypto dashboard. Our crypto dashboard is going to have a currency converter on it, in which we will be selecting from a list of currencies in order to convert one to the other based on a certain amount. We will also have an exchange rate display that will show us the currency live exchange rate between the two currencies, and a cryptocurrency newsfeed as well that will bring back 7 articles along with the URL that we will encapsulate the title of the article in. To get the latest data, we are going to be using 2 APIs from Rapid API, one being this currency converter API right here, and the other being this crypto news API right here. This tutorial is perfect for those wanting to learn how to use APIs and how to use them in React projects in order to build out their front-end developer portfolios. The only prerequisites for this video is to have a basic understanding of the fundamentals here. So CSS, HTML, JavaScript, and React. Okay, so what are we waiting for? I'm excited. Let's do it. Okay, so let's do it. So here we are on the Rapid API Hub. Rapid API Hub is a platform used by developers to find and connect to hundreds and hundreds of APIs, as you can see right here. I like to use Rapid API as I can literally scroll through all their options in a categorized way. And not only that, once I have a Rapid API key, I can use the same key for all the APIs that you see here. Okay, so no need to sign up to various different platforms and manage hundreds of passwords and API keys. You literally just need one to access all of these. For this tutorial, the APIs that we are going to be using are this Crypto News Live API to get a news feed in our app, as well as this Alpha Vantage API that we're going to use in order to get the cryptocurrency conversions. Okay? So these are the 2 we need. Let's get to it. So I'm just going to bring up my IDE of choice. Of course, you are free to use whatever IDE that you wish. This is just the IDE that I will be using for this tutorial. And I'm just going to create a new project. And this is going to be a React app. So I'm just going to click here, and that will bring up the command that I need in order to spin up a pre-configured React app. Okay, and here is what I'm going to call my project. So let's go ahead and call this crypto dashboard. For those of you who have not used this command before, it's really great as it allows you to spin up a single app application with all the files pre-configured. So for example, with all the correct dependencies and all the correct file structure. Okay, so let's get to it. I'm just going to click create, just like so, and that should spin up my app for me. There we go. You will see all the dependencies being installed, all the files being created, and you should see that populating in my crypto dashboard project right here. Now, for those of you who aren't using WebStorm, you can, of course, do this using your terminal. So I would simply go into a directory of my choice, such as development, and then I would use npx create react app and just simply call this something. Let's go ahead and call it crypto dashboard again, and just click enter. But of course, I'm not going to do it this way because I am using WebStorm to do this, but that is an alternative for those of you using something like VS Code, for example. Okay, so this should be done any second, and done. Happy hacking. Okay, wonderful. So as I said, you will see all the files being generated in here. I'm not going to talk you through this because this tutorial has the assumption that you've already worked with React. So I'm not going to talk you through what a .gignore file does and what a package JSON file does. However, just know that all the dependencies we need are here. They have been installed thanks to npx create react app, but we are going to add one more. Okay, so I'm just going to get up my terminal, just like so, and using npm I, I'm going to install the package Axios. Okay, so I'm just going to let that install. And for those of you who don't know, Axios is a promise-based HTTP client for the browser and NodeJS. So we can use Axios in the backend or the front end, which makes this perfect for our project. If you want to have more of a read about Axios and how to install it, as well as the code you need to get started, please go ahead and visit npmjs.com, so the npm registry /package/Axios. Okay? Wonderful. While that is installing, I'm just going to go in here and actually delete everything that we don't need. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete anything to do with tests and setting up web vitals as well as the logo, as we will not need that. So I'm simply going to delete these files like so, and delete anyway. And I'm also going to get rid of the app CSS file, as I want all my styling to be done in the index CSS file. So just in one place, as this is a small project. And I'm just going to get rid of this app test file too. So just like so. Great. So now if we look in app.js, well, we don't have these two anymore. So I'm just going to delete that. I'm going to delete these semicolons just like so, and save this page. I'm going to go into index.js and once again, just delete everything that we don't need along with the semicolons, because I don't really like using semicolons, but that is totally my choice and it's totally up to you. Great. So let's have a look to see if that is done. And wonderful. So the Axios package has been imported. If we have a look in the package.json, you will see it show up here along with its version. Okay, so if you are having any issues in the future, it could be down to the fact that this package in the future is now outdated. So please go ahead and revert back to this one if that is the case. Same goes for all of these as well. Okay, wonderful. So now that we have that, let's continue to building our app. So I'm just going to go back in here, and first of all, we need to start our app. So in WebStorm, I can simply press this button and that will run this script right here. So the start script, or if you're not using WebStorm, all you'd have to do is go npm run start. But as we don't have to do this because we are using WebStorm, I'm just going to go ahead and click here, and that will spin up our app. And our logo is not defined. So let's go back to our app.js file and get rid of the logo and just click save. And there we go. So let's just go ahead and visit this URL now. And wonderful. So there we go. That is essentially what is showing up here, just without any styling, just to show you that I am not lying. I'm going to change this to Anya, and it changes to Anya. So that is working. I'm actually going to get rid of all of this code as well as this div with the class name of app, as we don't have it anymore. So let's just go ahead and have two wrapping divs, just like that. And there we have it. We now have the basic structure to start our React app. I'm just going to change this to be a function expression as well. Again, this is just my personal preference. You could have kept it as function if you wish. Great. So now that we have a blank slate, well, what do I want to do? I want to create an app that on the right has a news feed and on the left has a currency converter that will also show us the currency converted exchange rate. So I'm going to do this with components. So I'm going to create my first component. As we said, I want a news feed on the left. So I'm going to create a component that will have my newsfeed in it. So just on the same level as the index CSS file, I'm going to create, so go new directory, and I'm going to call my directory components, where I'm going to store all of my components. So these components are essentially React components, and I am just going to create a new file, and let's call this newsfeed, just like so. And in here, well, just like we did with this component right here, so I could actually just copy this if I wish and paste it in here, and then rename this to news feed, making sure to rename it down here when we export it as well. And of course, delete that. So this is now our news feed, just like so. And then perhaps just so we can actually see it as well, I'm going to give this the class name of newsfeed. Great. Newsfeed. So this is looking good. I am happy with this. Let's carry on. I'm actually going to copy this again because we do want to make 2 more components. So let's go back to here. We have a newsfeed component, and on the left, I said I wanted something to show the currency converter. So just like so. So that is going to be our converter. So that is going to be our second component. If I've spelled that correctly, that looks good. So once again, in here, I'm just going to create a new file. I could just select JavaScript file if I want, and I'm going to call this currency converter, just like so. We don't need to add .js because it already knows this is a JavaScript file. So there we go, we've got a currency converter, and once again, I'm just going to create a component. Let's call this currency converter, that's correct. Making sure to export default it down here, and also maybe let's give this some styling just so we can differentiate between the two. So I'm going to call this, you guessed it, currency converter. Great. So now, just so we can see what's going on before we add the third component, let's style it up. So in here, let's go ahead and just keep that code for now. I'm going to get the newsfeed class, so dot for class, and let's just give it the background color of red for now. And then I'm also going to get the currency converter class and go background color blue. Okay, so great, we've made 2 components. I also now need to import these components. So import news feed from, and because it's an export default, it actually doesn't matter what we call this, okay? It will know that we want that component. So we need to import it from components newsfeed, just like that. Making sure that newsfeed is spelled exactly the same here. So now this whole component is being imported into my app. Once again, like I said, it doesn't matter what we call this. We can call it whatever we want, as the export of the component is just a default. So we just know that whatever this is, it will be imported into here as whatever we call this. Great, let's do the same for the currency converter. So import currency converter from components and then currency converter. So now if we look in this browser, you will see the newsfeed and the currency converter. Let's perhaps just go and make sure that this says currency converter, just so we can know which one we are talking about at all times. Okay, so there we go, newsfeed and currency converter. However, as we said, we want the newsfeed to be on the right and the currency converter to be on the left. So I could do so easily with some styling. So let's go back in here, and on this div, let's just go ahead and give this the class name of app. And go back in here, just above here, I'm going to add a app class, and I'm going to say display flex. Okay, so now the two appear next to each other. Wonderful. While we are here, I'm actually just going to give it some more styling just to make sure that they're always next to each other no matter what. Flex selection column will just mean that they're always next to each other. And I'm going to align items in the center. Okay, so that is just something for the future when we start building this out a little bit. Great. So we have created two components. However, I did say I want a third, and that third component is going to show us the exchange rate. So let's go ahead and create an exchange rate component. So once again, in here, create new file. Let's make it a JavaScript file, and I'm going to call this exchange rate. We could call it display if we wish, or we could just say this exchange rate component. It's up to you. So I've just added that, and once again, I'm just going to basically copy this because it's exactly the same, and I'm going to call this exchange rate, export the exchange rate component, and let's just give it the wording of exchange rate here. And once again, let's also give this a class name. So I'm going to call this exchange rate. So there we go. I'm going to my CSS file, and once again, all I'm going to do is simply give it a background color so we can differentiate. Let's go ahead and give this the background color of green. Great. And now this time, I don't want to put my component in here, okay? I actually want to put it in the currency converter. So I'm going to go in here and import exchange rate from, and because we are in the same directory, this will be very easy. All I need to do is essentially just go to the file. So just like that. And where do I want to put it? Well, I just want to put it below here. So I'm going to put in the component like so. And now if we look here, wonderful. So actually I want these flipped around. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Making sure that the news feed is after the currency converter. And great. So we've got the news feed on the right. We have the currency converter on the left, which also includes the exchange rate in it as a child. So the exchange rate is the child component of the currency exchange component, which I have misnamed again. Let's just go currency converter. Again, this won't be important. I'm just showing you this for now. Wonderful. So now that we've got that, let's get to converting some currencies. So I'm going to be doing this in this component right here. So I'm just going to get rid of all the others. We're not going to need them for now. I will keep the CSS file as that could be useful in a bit. So the first thing that I'm going to do is let's actually just create an H2 tag and put currency converter in it, just so that we know what is going on here. So let's call that currency converter. And now in here, what I actually want to do is create a table. Okay, so I'm going to create a table just like so, just to make sure that everything is structured at all times. So here is my table tag. And as you might or might know, when we use the table tag with JSX, we actually need to put a body tag in here as well. And now we can start making table rows. So I'm going to make my first table row, and in it, I'm going to have a table data cell, which I'm going to give some text to, which is going to say primary currency, just like so. So there we go. And now I'm going to have another table data cell, but this time in this table data cell, I'm going to show you how all this looks like in a bit. I'm going to have an input element. Okay, and this is going to be a self-closing tag, and the input element, well, I only want numbers to go in here, so I'm going to give it the type of number, because currency should be in numbers. Let's also give this a name for good practice. So I'm going to call this currency amount 1, and then the value, which at the moment it's not going to have a value, so I'm just going to leave it as an empty string like so. And let's have a look at what this looks like. So there we go. We have a table, which the row consists of primary currency, and then an input, which allows us to select different numbers. Okay, great. Before we move on, I do actually want to put this in a wrapping div, just because I feel like it should all be in a wrapping div so we can give it some extra styling around the table. So I'm going to grab that entire table and put it in this div, just like so. And then let's give this div a class name of input box, as that is what we are creating. And we actually need one more table data cell. So here's our first one, here's our second one. Let's put one last one before we move on to the next row. And in this table data cell, I actually want a select element. And in this select element, well, I'm gonna have to put some stuff in here. So we need a value, which once again, I'm just gonna leave empty for now. Let's also give this a name. This is going to be called currency option 1, as it's going to be the currency that we first choose to convert to the other. Let's give this a class name of, again, let's just put currency options for now, not currency option 1, as we're going to apply this class name to two select elements. And then we're going to have some options. So I'm just going to leave one option for now. But we will be mapping an array onto more options, making sure that is outside of here and in between these two select tags. So right now could be a good time to just reformat this, just to make our code a little bit neater. Reformat file, run. Okay, so that is looking much neater. Let's carry on. So now if we look in here, you will see primary currency, an input, and a select with nothing in it to select. I want two of these, okay, because I want a primary currency and then the second currency as to which it's converted to. So I'm simply going to grab all of this, so the whole table row, TR is for table row, and simply just paste it again. And this time, let's call this secondary currency, currency amount 2. Currency option 2, so whatever option we choose, and this is looking good. Wonderful. So now I think it's time to actually get some currency options. So let's go ahead and do that up here. Right under where we return the JSX. So I'm actually going to hard code these currencies. This is because the API that we are using returns so many currencies, not all of them crypto, and I want to make sure that they're all crypto. So all I've done is simply use this API right here, the Alpha Vantage one, and done some research on what kind of cryptocurrencies it has and what format we need to put them in. Okay, if you want to do your own research, please go ahead and see the documentation and read more. So all I'm going to do now is use what I have previously found. Again, this is my research, and I know that this API takes Bitcoin in that format, Ethereum, and I'm just going to maybe copy paste the rest because, again, I don't want to be here while you watch me type it out. So those are the ones we're going to convert to. I do have US dollars in there as well, so maybe that's not the only cryptocurrency one, but I think it's a useful one to have. So there we have our currencies. It's an array, and I'm going to use this array called currencies to map out the options onto different option elements. So here we have our option element, and to map onto it, well, I'm going to show you how to do this. We need to put this in some curly braces, and then I'm going to grab the currencies array and use the JavaScript method of map to map. Again, I'm just going to wrap that around in parentheses. And for each item, or for each currency, let's call it, in my currency array, so for every item that exists in this array, I've called this currency, I can call it I can call it whatever I wish. And for each of those, well, what do I want to do? So again, let's just use our parentheses to wrap the option. I want to essentially just put the currency in between these options. Okay, so there we go. That's really it. I'm going to make this smaller for you. So if we now look in here, you will see all my currency options. We are not yet done, however. For best practice, I do need to put in an index, even though we won't really be using it. So as we are not going to be using it, I can simply just do index like this. Okay, so I pass through an index, but we don't really need it. It's not really that important, and hence I'm putting in an underscore. It can be ignored. So that means we also need to put a key on the option. So I'm just going to pass through the index. Let's have a look at our warnings now. Okay. Apologies, this should be T-body, not body. That is my fault. And where is the other one? T-body. So that has been updated. Great. And it's telling us to put in a value. Okay, this we are aware of. We have left it blank for now. Wonderful. So we've finished our first select. Let's carry on. I'm going to also apply to the second select. So just like we did up here, I'm just going to grab all of this and also map onto the options in the second select right there. So wonderful. So that is looking good. The next thing we need to do is actually save the selected option to state. So I'm going to show you how to do this now. So for this, we're going to actually have to import useState from React. I'm going to do import useState from React. Hopefully you know how to use useState. If you don't, please go ahead and research that now. Otherwise, feel free to code along with me. I'll do a brief overview of what it is. So to use useState to save things to the state of this component, what I have to do is use this syntax. So for example, if we want to save the first chosen currency, let's choose to call this chosen primary currency for the first select, and then we're going to set chosen primary currency like so, and use useState. And for now, I'm going to pass through null. Okay, so what I can do, so at the moment using useState, I am saying that chosen primary currency is null, but I can change that value by using set chosen primary currency, making sure that is a small s. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to use this. And on the select, I'm going to say that as soon as this changes, so whenever this changes in value, I'm going to pass through E for event. You can pass through the whole event, or you could just pass through E if you wish. And I'm going to use set chosen primary currency to change the value of chosen currency to whatever the value of my select is. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense. If I now console log chosen primary currency, we look in here. So let's have a look at the first one. At the moment, it is null because that's what we use state to set chosen primary currency to. However, if I select LTC, we have changed chosen primary currency to LTC. We can also get it to display in here, and I can do so easily, simply again on the select, changing the value to, you guessed it, chosen primary currency. So that is looking good. Now, there is one thing that I just want to make you aware of, because we are starting at null, and as you can see here, it says BTC. This could potentially cause errors, okay? Because we think that we have chosen BTC, but the value of chosen primary currency is null. So I'm going to actually hard code this to be BTC, just to be in line with what we see. Wonderful. So we've done one, let's do the other. So how do you think we would do this other select? Well, quite simply, we do it the same way. So I'm simply going to copy this, and we're going to do chosen secondary currency. So chosen secondary currency. Also, we'll start it at BTC. Let's console log chosen secondary currency just to make sure everything is working fine. And on change of the select, so on change, set chosen secondary currency to E target value. And also show the chosen secondary currency here. Set chosen secondary currency. It's very long. I think that's fine. Set chosen secondary currency. So now if we go here and then let's just check this works. So refresh. As you will see, the chosen secondary currency is BTC. And if I change it to ADA, there we go. So wonderful. We are storing the first chosen currency. We are storing the second chosen currency. The next thing we need to do is store the amount that we want to convert to state, because we're going to have to send all three of these things over to our API. So as you will see here, to get a currency exchange rate for crypto here, well, it's asking us for the currency we're going to change it from, the currency we're going to change it to, and then we are choosing to save the amount so that we can get the exchange rate and multiply it by the amount we want to exchange. So great, let's go ahead and do that. So once again, up here, I'm going to go const amount, set amount, use state, and I'm going to pass through a 1 as a default, okay, because we want to convert one of a BTC to whatever the currency that we choose to convert to. So at the moment, amount here is the number 1, but we can change that using set amount. So I'm going to do so on the first input. So just up here, and this time, once again, we're going to use onChange. We're going to use E for event, and we're going to use set amount and pass through E target value. Okay, so great. Now we are saving all 3 things. Let's just go ahead and check if this has worked. So I'm going to console log the amount, but I'm also going to show the amount in the input itself. So let's have a look. Obviously 1 is showing up as we used use state in order to do this. And if I now change it to 2, you will see the amount changing as well. So we have all 3 things saved. Let's carry on. Now it's time to actually use this piece of code in our project. So I'm going to hook this up. I want to say that as soon as I click a button, then we make this GET request. So let's go ahead and create a button. I'm going to do so right at the bottom here, after the table. So there we have our table. Let's go ahead and create a button. I will be formatting all of this a little bit better at the end. Let's just continue for now. And the button is going to say convert. And let's go ahead and give this an ID in case we want to style this or anything like that. I'm going to call it convert button, just like so. And I'm going to say that on click, I want to, let's pass through a callback, I want to convert. So this is a function that I have not yet written. In fact, I'm going to write it now. So I'm going to write this function up here. So const convert equals, and I'm going to just write a function. So what do I want to happen when we press the button? Well, I essentially want to make a GET request. So I'm simply going to get all of this and I'm going to paste that in here, making sure to take this out. And we're going to import Axios by ourselves here. So import Axios from Axios. This is the front end way to do it. Great. So we've imported the package that we installed as a dependency at the beginning of this video, and we can now use it in here. As you will see, we are making an Axios request. I'm just going to tidy this up a little bit. I don't want to use var. Let's use const. And once again, let's just get rid of any curly braces. And I'm just going to use arrow functions here too. So just like that. Okay, so now as soon as we have all 3 of these, well, I want to make a GET request. So I'm going to replace this with the chosen primary currency. And I'm going to replace this with the chosen secondary currency. So just like that. And for now, let's just check this works. Let's just go in here and press refresh. And I'm going to keep this as a 1. And I'm going to change Bitcoin to US dollars and click convert. And there we go. We are getting back our data. So as you will see, here's our data. It's actually the same data that if we tested this endpoint. So if I go ahead and click test endpoint, we're getting the exact same data. Okay, so this is looking good. If you haven't signed up to this, now is a good time to do so. Otherwise, you can't test the endpoint and what we have done might not work for you. So please go ahead and sign up to use this. As you will see, I am subscribed. This one does have some pricing that comes along with it. So we can only make 500 requests a day. However, as this is a personal project, that should be fine. I do not expect to go over this per day. Okay, so wonderful. Let's carry on. So hopefully that is now working for you. Once again, you do need to be subscribed in order to use this and in order to test it. So if something is not working for you, it could be because you have not subscribed. Great. Okay, so now that we're getting back a response, I actually want to save this response, once again, you guessed it, to state so that we can use it. So I'm going to do that down here. Let's save this as exchange rate, as that is essentially what we want to get from here. I'm looking for the exchange rate. Okay, that's what I want. So to go into this object, I will need to go into the real-time currency exchange and then find the exchange rate. So I'm going to show you how to do this. First of all, let's just set up our use state here. So exchange rate, set exchange rate, use state, and I'm just going to start off with this being 0 this time. Okay, so there we go. So now there's our data. However, we want to go into the object, and to go into the object, but by the property or key, I'm going to just get, oops, this right here as a string. So that is what we want to get. And then once I am in that object, I want to get the, that was cleared. I'm just going to go ahead and let's look in here, making sure that we are in digital and crypto on the exchange rate. We can have a look at sample responses. So we're going to get the real-time currency exchange, and then we're going to get the currency rate. So I need to get that whole string and then simply put it in here. So that should get me the exchange rate. I'm also going to set this to set exchange rate and pass through essentially this whole thing right here. Okay, so now if we console log exchange rate, we should see the exchange rate. So let's have a look at that. So once again, let's select USD and click convert. There we go. We are getting the exchange rate. Should we try another one? Let's do this one and convert. And we are getting another exchange rate. So this is looking great. We have a few more things to do. I actually want to display this exchange rate multiplied by the amount that we want to convert in here. So I'm going to do that next, and that will actually solve this warning for me as well. So let's go ahead and do that. So that is my exchange rate. Another thing I want to set is the result, and the result is the result of the exchange rate multiplied by the amount. So I'm just going to simply go this, which is the exchange rate, and I'm going to multiply it by the amount. So that should be fine. This returns back a number, and this is a number. However, we also need to get the result. So set or result we can do. Set result equals use state, and I'm going to start off at 0. So now I can use result and display this in this input right here. So that is the second input. And actually what I also want to do on this second input is disable it. Okay, because I don't want it to be tampered with. I simply want it just to show the result. Okay, so this is looking good. We don't really need to type for this, as it's just showing the result. And make sure this is a D, and there we go. You will now see it's disabled. And if I now select a value, so 2 Bitcoin to US dollars, and click convert, Amazing. Now, I can now actually change this and it will do another conversion for me. So this currency converter is officially now working. Wonderful. So hopefully that makes sense. We aren't getting any warnings yet. We have solved this warning. Let's carry on. Now, I did also say that I wanted to show my exchange rate in its own component. So here's my exchange rate component. It is the one in green here. I'm simply going to pass through the exchange rate, not the result, into it. So I can do so easily. So I can go in here and just go exchange rate and pass through the exchange rate. So I'm just passing through a prop into the exchange rate component. So let's go ahead and save that, making sure that is a small e. And now let's go into our components again. So the exchange rate component, and I'm going to destructure the exchange rate that I passed through and simply just show it in here. So now if we look in here, you will see the exchange rate showing up. Not the result, but the exchange rate from one currency to another. Wonderful. Let's carry on. So now I'm going to just do some styling on this component. This is going to be a very simple one. All I'm going to do is actually just have an H. Let's do an H3 tag this time. Exchange rate, like so. And I'm going to show the exchange rate. Let's put an H1 tag. H1 tag. Oops. Okay. H1, just like so, making sure that's an H1 as well. And then we could also pass through, if we want, maybe we can pass through, chosen primary currency to secondary currency, just so it's super clear what is happening here. It is the conversion rate from one to the other, which means we just have to pass through the chosen primary currency and the chosen secondary currency. So that is also something that we can do. It just means we need to pass them through here as well. So let's just go ahead and do that. So I'm just passing them through as props and chosen primary currency. I'm also going to pass that through as a prop and then destructure it in the exchange rate. So now if we look here, you will see the exchange rate and you will also see that what we are exchanging it from. Okay, and let's just try again. So let's go Ethereum to US dollars and click convert. Ta-da! You will see that changing. Great. And if I increase this, convert, again, that will change. Wonderful. So I'm happy with this at the moment. Of course, we will style it up a lot better. For now, I just also need to do my newsfeed. So let's tackle that first and then do any styling and any other issues that may arise from what we have built so far. So let's do it. I'm just going to go back to here and I'm going to get rid of the currency converter and the exchange rate. And I'm just going to open up my newsfeed this time. So as we said for the newsfeed, this time we're going to use this Crypto News Live. Again, please make sure you are subscribed to it so you can use it. The pricing of this isn't too bad. We get 300 requests a month, so this is okay for personal projects. Like I said, this is for building up your personal projects portfolio. So please go ahead and subscribe to this one and just make sure you don't go over 300. So my endpoints for this are like so. I just want to get all the articles, so get all crypto news. So all I'm going to do is just copy this. Again, we don't need a different API key. It's the same API key for everyone. Please keep it safe. I will be deactivating my API key after this. So all I'm going to do is go back in here. And this time, because I just want to get all the news articles. We don't need to attach this to a button. I'm going to use effect, just like so. And then in this use effect, thank you for importing use effect for me. Make sure that is imported from React. I am just going to have no dependencies so that this only runs once. And I'm going to paste all the code we just copied. And again, this is for backend. So I need to import Axios the front end way. Import Axios from Axios, making sure that I just want to use single quotes. Again, that is a preference, you don't have to. And now this code should work. And I'm just going to once again switch this to a const and get rid of any semicolons. And again, change this to an arrow function. You can also use async and await. It's totally up to you. I just copied this, so there's less work for us to do. Great. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and save the results of this. So these are the results. If we test it out, so if we test out the endpoint, this is what the results should look like. So this is an array of items. This is good. It's good that it's an array. It will make it a lot easier for us. So once we get the results back, so the response data, that should be an array that we can work with. So let's go ahead and work with it. So once again, here is the array, and let's save this as something. I'm going to save this as articles. So this is where we use state again. I'm going to go const articles, set articles, and I'm going to use state and set this as null this time. And let's go ahead and make sure use state is imported from React so we can use it. And now the response data, I'm going to just use set articles to set articles to be the array, which is response data. So response data will come back with the array as we just saw in Rapid API. Response data. Great. So let's check it out. Let's see if that is indeed bringing back our articles. And wonderful, an array of all the articles. So now we're going to do some more mapping. So just in here in the newsfeed, well, what do I want to happen? I think that we should, just in here, let's perhaps also give this an h2 tag this time of news feed. And then, well, let's map each news article. There is a lot of articles, so what we can do is just get the first, I don't know, first 20 articles or something, or first, let's just do first 7. So I would get the articles array, and I'm going to use the JavaScript method of slice and just get the first 7. So that's how you would do it. That's how you'd get the first 7 items of an array. And I just want to check this exists first, because obviously it might not exist on the first render. So if it exists, I want to save this as first 7 articles. And once we have those first 7 articles, well, this is the array that I want to map onto something. And I think we can just map this onto a p tag, just like so. So let's get our curly braces up again. And I'm getting the first 7 news articles. And if they exist, I want to then map that onto the p tag. Okay. So for each article, that exists in the first 7 articles, I want to use some parentheses, just print out the article. Let's have a look. I want to print out the article title. So article.title. So let's get the article title, just like so. And there we go. Once again, we will get an error as we have not passed through the key, but at least we're getting our newsfeed show up. This is looking good. I want to limit the amount of re-renders because obviously that's going to count towards our 300. So let's just keep that in mind. and then I do underscore index and give the p tag a key. Or we can actually, which might be a better thing to do, we can wrap this in a div itself. So wrap the p tag in a div so that we can give each div some styling if we wish. And let's give this the key of underscore index, just like so. And perhaps maybe let's space this out so it's a bit more readable. And we can also, because we see this comes back with an article title and an article URL, I can now use that URL to wrap the p tag in it. So if I go A, and then just whack the p tag in there and give this an href of, oops, the article URL, or how is it spelled here? Yes, URL. That should wrap each of them in a URL so that we can click this and go to the news article to read about it instead. Great. I'm really happy with how this is looking. So, well, of course, please feel free to use whatever news feed you wish. This is just the first one that I came across on Rapid API. There are so many to choose from. So this is looking good. This is pretty much all I want to do. The next thing that I want to talk to you about is storing your Rapid API keys safely in a way that will prevent other people from taking them from your GitHub. Okay, so that is what we are going to do now. And I'm going to finish with some styling and refactoring and just checking everything works properly. So to store this, we need to store our Rapid API key in a .env file, and that .env file is in the root of your project, so on the same level as the package.json. And I'm just going to create a .env file, and then in here I'm going to store this. We don't need to specify this as a string, that is implied, and let's call this Rapid API key. However, to use this in the React app, I also need to append React app to it, just like so. So that will now work. So now all I need to do is grab this, and I need to use process env in order to get the key from my .env file, and then just paste that. I'm going to do so as well for the currency converter get request. And again, it's the same key, so just like that. And now we need to restart. Don't forget to restart the app. So I'm going to stop and rerun. Okay, so again, this is now kept safe in a .env file. That seems to be working just as intended. That is good. And then I also need to add this to the .ignore so that it doesn't get uploaded onto GitHub by mistake. And don't forget that even though we are storing this in a git ignore and we are preventing this to being uploaded onto GitHub, technically this is not super safe. The only way to really keep your secret safe is to build out a backend, which we will not be doing in this tutorial. However, if you do want to check that out, please do. I do have some videos on this. This is just for your own demo purposes, for projects to get hired, okay? This is not how you would do this in real life. So you can either choose to just save this as a personal project or watch some tutorials of mine on NodeJS, Express, and so on. But just to prove to you that this is still viewable, if I go to sources, then go to static, and then go to main chunk and search for Rapid API, you will see the key is showing up, okay? It's being bundled up, and we don't see process env React app anymore. We actually see the string itself. So that's just something that you should know. People could still find this, especially to the more trained eye. So keep that in mind. Great. Now this is all looking fine. There is some styling. One thing that I would like to do, however, because as we can see, if I change this, everything is changing here. And if I convert this, There we go, we get the exchange rate from Ethereum to US dollars. However, if we start messing around with this, obviously I don't expect that to change, but this is no longer the correct exchange rate. I only want to pass through the chosen currency, the primary and the secondary one. So I'm going to show you how to fix this. I am doing this on the fly though, so please bear with me. This is not something I pre-prepared. But the way I would do this is that I would save this to state. So again, you will see here that we are saving the exchange rate. Well, the exchange rate is the only thing that we want to pass through into the exchange rate here. So there is two ways I can do this. The simple way is for me just to simply set primary currency, exchanged, maybe let's call it like that, and pass through the chosen primary currency, and then create another use state. So this time it's going to be set primary currency exchanged and primary currency exchanged, and then do the same for the secondary currency. Set secondary currency exchanged and then secondary currency exchanged. So now we can essentially set the currency that we want to pass on to our exchange rate component, chosen secondary currency. So instead of this, instead of the chosen primary currency, I'm passing through the set one. And same for here, so secondary, just like so. Okay, so at the moment it's null. Of course, we should probably change this to be the default, which is BTC. Okay, so now when we choose one of these, let's go Bitcoin to US dollar, do one convert, that will change. And if I change this now, that will not change again. So that is one way to do it. Again, there's better ways to do it. My suggestion would be to change this all into one thing and just save all of this as an object, just because we're not using this for anything else apart from passing into here, and it will just look a lot neater. So you can keep it like this, or of course you can make this an object. Maybe let's make an object. So const exchange to exchange, or exchanged data, let's call it. Data, changed data. Once again, I am doing this on the fly. Exchanged, which is why it's taking me a while to think of how I should call these. Use state. And then I'm going to have to set this as something. I'm going to set this as primary currency BTC, secondary currency BTC, and then the exchange rate as 0 for now. So that is the object that I want to pass, and I'm going to use set data right here. So comment that out. Set exchange data. I'm going to open this up, and once again, I'm just going to have the same structure that I did here. And this time, exchange rate is going to be this. I'm going to copy that. And this is going to be the chosen primary currency. And this is going to be the chosen secondary currency, which means I don't need this anymore because I'm just dealing with everything in this one object. So that should now be saved to exchanged data. We can console log this out. And I'm simply just going to pass through the exchange data, get rid of these, go back to the exchange rate, simply just pass through the exchange data, and now I can get the exchange data, exchange rate, exchange data, chosen primary currency, and the exchange data, chosen secondary currency. So let's hope that has worked. Exchange rate is not defined. Just gonna get rid of these for now. There we go. Oops, that should be primary currency. And this should be secondary currency. Exchange rate was exchange rate. And let's check it out. So now if I go Bitcoin to US dollars, convert. Okay, so that is changing. It will not change this, so that is good. However, the exchange rate is not showing up. Why is that? Exchange rate. Let's console log the exchange data. Convert. So the exchange rate is being passed through. I can see that. It's because it's with capital E. So let's go ahead and change this here. Exchange rate. Exchange rate. Wonderful. So let's just make sure that that is the same too. And there we go. This should be fine. Again, thank you for bearing with me as I fix this on the fly. Convert. Wonderful. So we have done it. We have now built our currency converter. It converts currencies. It only passes through the set currency, and it won't change anything if I select other ones. So just like so. Not all of these convert to each other, by the way. You would have to do some more research on that. And if I press the button, the currency conversion will go through. Great. So now just some final styling and we're finished. So I'm going to go back to here. And we have our app, our newsfeed. I actually don't really like this color. Let's go ahead and change this. I'm going to use RGB for this tutorial. Sometimes I use hex and sometimes I don't. I know this color is nice, so this is something that I pre-prepared in terms of styling because I don't really like to spend too much time on the styling. If you know me, I feel like I like to focus on the JavaScript options a little bit more. So let's give it some margin. Let's also give it some box shadow. So if you know how to use box shadow, this should be familiar too. Sorry that I am not explaining this very much. Once again, I don't really like to focus too much on styling aspects in my tutorials. And finally, I'm also going to give this a max width, so the newsfeed itself of 300 pixels, as it is a bit intimidating at the moment. It's taking up too much space. I only want it to take up this much space. Great, so there we go. And next, the currency converter. Well, I'm actually also going to change this to use RGB, and this is a color that I picked out earlier. So they're all going to be quite light neutral colors. Let's also give this some padding of 10 pixels. Margin 5 pixels just to space all the boxes out from each other. And once again, I'm just going to copy this box shadow styling. And I'm also going to make all the text align to the center. So that has now changed our currency converter to look like this. One more thing to do, and that is style the green exchange rate. So let's find the exchange rate. And once again, let's change this to be an RGB color. And I'm going to change this to be 221, 230, 221, and let's again give it some padding. So padding 20 pixels, margin top 10 pixels, and then box shadow again, just let's give it that. Great. So that is already looking a lot cooler, I think. Let's also make sure that it's in the center. So I'm going to do that now, and maybe let's style the button a bit. So button border none, float right, because I want it to go to the right. Let's give it some margin. I love a bit of a margin. Font family. Now the font family should be applied from the body, I think. So perhaps let's just leave that. That is looking fine. However, on the button hover, so as soon as we hover over the button, I want the background color to change. Let's start off with coral, but let's maybe just change it around a little bit to also be RGBA. Okay. Well, let's keep it coral for now, and I can always replace it later. So now when we hover over it, changes color. Let's also space this out a little bit. So let's perhaps do that now. I'm going to get the input box. Give it a background color, RGB 218, 227, 238. Padding 30 pixels. Border radius, I like a bit of border radius, to 10 pixels. And once again, some box shadow. Now this is shaping up much nicer now. That button's in here and this is looking a lot slicker. A few more things to do. I want to add some styling to the select and the input. So I can do so like this. I can grab the input and the select and just give it a border of none. Okay, so I've got rid of the border of that. And I think this is looking good. I'm really enjoying how this is looking. Perhaps let's also add some border to this here. So border radius on the exchange rate should also be 10. And wonderful. And one last thing, I did say I want to center this. So let's go ahead and do that. So change that to an F. That should have been an F from the beginning. So now these two are once again on top of each other. I want them to be next to each other. So all I'm going to do is go into here, and in the app, I'm going to put these in another div. I'm just going to get these, cut them, and give this a class name of app wrapper. Grab the app wrapper and just once again do display flex. So now they're next to each other, and one final touch, I'm just going to add a title for our app, so an H1 tag, and let's call this crypto dashboard. And wonderful! We have now finished our crypto dashboard. I hope you've learned something new. I hope you can take this project and share it with your potential employers, really demonstrating that you know how to work with APIs as we work with two, and demonstrating your React skills, as well as demonstrating that you know about the safety of API keys. Thanks very much, and I'll see you soon.